Hey everybody, welcome back to Lettermen Row. I am Austin Ward. That is Jeremy Birmingham. This is a rapid reaction to the latest bit of news for an Ohio State and Big Ten college football season across the NCAA. As it relates to the Buckeyes specifically, they have at least now taken some steps to, if they are allowed to have home games in the Horseshoe, we now know what that would look like. Capacity in Ohio Stadium will be limited to a maximum of 20%. That's about 22,000 people in that famed stadium. Masks are going to be required. There will be no tailgating. Concessions will be limited, and the skull session will be gone. So a lot of the things that make college football great, that make Ohio Stadium such a wonderful place to be in the fall, are either going to be dramatically reduced or now eliminated entirely. And I know that the good news is that's a plan if there are football games. The bad news is that it's not going to look like anything we've ever seen before.
Yeah, for me personally, I'm just glad that they're moving forward with a plan. And I'm going to try to take the optimistic approach. And I know that there's still this unknown, like, hey, maybe there won't be a season after all. Who knows? You watch what happens with the Florida Marlins this week, or Miami Marlins, or whatever the hell they are. Like, you just don't know what's going to happen and how things are going to be handled. But the good news, the big picture good news, is that Ohio State seems committed to figuring out a path forward. And as the Buckeyes go, so will the Big Ten. So I think that that's a plus. But again, for us, we're watching the games on the field or in this press box. And so we're not really – I sort of tune out the rest of that stuff anymore. So I don't really care if there's 10 people in the crowd or 22,000, as long as there's 22 guys on the field playing the game. And that's all I'm really kind of hoping for at this point, is that we can get that Big Ten only season that has been discussed. And, we're 6 weeks away from hopefully the start of that. So with this week's news that Ohio State's getting back to the practice field, and then you have this news today, the optimist in me says, hey, let's just keep plugging away and hopefully we have football in 6 weeks.
Yeah, and there's no guarantee of that, of course. We've mentioned that dating back to March, that we don't know exactly what's going to happen. And I would say, you talked about the Major League Baseball setback, more specific to our interest for Ohio State football. The fact that Michigan State and Rutgers both went into a full team quarantine over the weekend. Well, they're missing their 2-week walkthrough stage. Those coaches are absolutely going to want that back. So, felt like the Big Ten was close to maybe trying to put together a tentative finalized schedule. I know that is an oxymoron, but that they were going to set some dates aside and set some opponents down. Well, that gets a lot more difficult if Michigan State and Rutgers want to get their entire practice time back, which they will, so that would rule them out for week 0, 1, and 2 in all likelihood. Who knows exactly what these teams will choose to do, what the league will want to do, but these are all reminders of the complications that are going to happen. It's also why they built in the flexibility where they didn't have to play in week 1 or week 2, but if you think that, Rutgers was looking like a team that Ohio State was going to play in September, suddenly you have some real questions about if that can happen. And there are a lot more questions now that have to be answered, and no real way to know exactly how that's going to play out.
Yeah, there has to be contingency plans to any plan that's made here. And I guess that's the thing you have to ask or hope for if you're a fan, is that the league is committed to playing the games. And if they are committed to playing the games, they'll figure out a way to do that. To the best of their ability. Maybe that means games get pushed into December or January. Maybe it means they get pushed back into February or March. If that happens, everything gets blown up, as we've talked about. You're not going to see Justin Fields again at Ohio State. You're not going to see a lot of the stuff that people are counting on this season. I think the thing that people have to be hoping for is that the built-in flexibility with the schedules the Big Ten was allowing for gets used. The Buckeyes players, when we had a chance to talk to Ohio State's offensive linemen this summer, of the one media availability we've had with any players at Ohio State since spring, to a man, they said they'd be willing to live in a hotel for the football season, their own little kind of personal bubble, like the NBA is intending to do. But even that we see, kind of gets thrown for a loop if somebody wants chicken wings. The truth is that you have to be able to say, if this goes wrong, this is what we're going to do. And, the reality for the country, the world, is that this virus is here. It's not going anywhere. We're obviously closer to vaccines than we were 5 months ago, but does the vaccine really matter? These are just big questions that nobody's going to be able to answer. So to me, again, the optimistic side of me says they're committed to playing football. They have a schedule that they're working on. Hopefully, Rutgers, Michigan State, whatever that number is. Ohio State shut down practice for 4 days because they were worried. And but it's on these players and these people running the programs to be in control of what these guys are doing when they're away from the field. Because when they're inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center or inside of anywhere else, they're being monitored and tested and controlled. It's just what happens when you allow 22-year-olds, 21-year-olds, 20-year-olds to go out into a college environment and be, college kids. And that's when things get murky.
Yeah, and it's going to stay that way throughout the season. And that's why some of this, even this plan now that Ohio State has in place for games at the Horseshoe, why that remains subject to change. I don't think the no tailgating is not going to change. No school session, that will not change. Masks required, limited concessions, that is all going to be permanent. The only thing that's really left and will get the most attention probably is the maximum capacity of 20% in the Horseshoe. Even that now, there were discussions back in March and April and May when there was rise in optimism for Gene Smith and others. Hey, maybe 50,000 could get in there. That was always at the top end. There was always a plan that was 20 to 30,000. That is the one that they're now trying to execute. But even that can continue to be scaled back. That will depend then on what local government officials, what the state government allows to happen in the state of Ohio and in Columbus specifically, because we've already seen that. Again, with to always use this Rutgers example, they're not going to be fans at Rutgers games. Can make an easy.
Well, there aren't anyway.
Well, I knew I was just teeing you up for it, but that's going to continue to happen across the Big Ten footprint as well. So there's going to be a lot of attention on the 20% capacity for the Horseshoe. I would advise that that's not definite. This is, I think, sort of a resetting the baseline expectation and giving the option for season ticket holders, of which I believe there's 45,000. Well, that's double the amount of people that are even going to be in the shoe. Plus, they're still going to have the opportunity for students to be in there. But even still, that could be scaled back below that. There's a possibility that 0 fans will be in the Horseshoe this fall.
I'm sure I'm in the majority when I say this, but I don't think anyone really cares. I mean, they want fans in the stadium for revenue, okay? I mean, that's the reason you want fans in the stadium. 20,000 fans is better than no fans. But for most people, as long as the game is on TV and there are 22 players on the field playing football, people are going to be happy. So if it comes down to choosing between 0 people in the stands and both football teams on the sideline, people are going to choose football teams on the sideline because TV will be making a killing when people are watching the game. So I personally could care less about fans in the crowd. I mean, I'm obviously going to make for some interesting dynamics and things that you're going to hear and see differently than you would before. But to me, it's about football. Like if we're going to do it, say you're going to do it and move forward, have a plan and understand it's not going to be perfect. There's no scenario where football players at Ohio State and Michigan State aren't going to test positive for this virus that is going around and has infected hundreds of millions of people. Like it's not going to eliminate in the next 6 weeks. So you have to have a plan to move forward to play with it. And to me, the easiest course is to say no fans, but obviously why they want fans in the stadium. That's money.
Yeah, they're putting a plan in place for that right now. Ohio State has confirmed that, sent it out to season ticket holders and made that public announcement today as they try to build in those contingencies in case that the Horseshoe can hold football games this season. He is Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. This has been Rapid Reaction. Stay with us at Lettermen Row for all Ohio State college football coverage all year long. See ya.